A study done in June 2022 found that 41% of those people earning between $150,000 and $200,000 considered themselves living paycheck to paycheck. Now you might be thinking, how is this possible? How is someone earning $150,000 or even $200,000 living paycheck to paycheck? To the point where they don't have any money left over at the end of the month? Well, a major contributing factor to this is lifestyle inflation, also known as lifestyle creep. We'll talk about this for the rest of the video. So what is lifestyle inflation? Lifestyle inflation is where a person's spending goes up as their income increases. Every time your income goes up, you begin to spend more on a monthly basis. It can get to a point where you're stuck paying credit card debt, unable to save for retirement, or can't meet your bigger picture financial goals. Is lifestyle inflation really all that bad? We make money to spend money, right? Well, there are some positives. You spend on better quality goods, which generally mean you can live a better quality of life. A massive example of this is opting for healthier, more expensive food options as opposed to cheaper, less healthy. You end up spending more, which gets you better quality goods and in turn gives you a better lifestyle. Another positive of lifestyle inflation is you end up getting more respect and your social status goes up. As you start to buy more luxury items, you buy better quality goods, your peers start to understand that you're living a better quality lifestyle. You're earning more, and so they start to respect you more. It's a little bit bleak, but it is a positive. And finally, you begin to consume more. You buy better quality goods, you go on more holidays, you have more experiences, and this in general makes people happier. On the other hand, there can be some pretty big downfalls or negatives to lifestyle inflation. Well, firstly, you can suffer an opportunity cost. Now, what is opportunity cost? Let's run through an example. We have two people, person A and person B. Person A and person B earn the same wage, but person A maybe spends a little bit more. He's not so afraid of tapping his card down and maybe can buy better quality goods, more expensive products, and spends a little bit more. Person B is a little bit more conservative with his money. He's a little bit more afraid to spend on those higher price items. Person B has more money at the end of the year. They have a wider range of opportunities they can invest in. Maybe they get to their mortgage down payment quicker, which means they can afford that house quicker. Another downfall to lifestyle inflation is it can lead to a lot of consumer debt. As you get a pay rise, you might opt for a more expensive, better car lease. You might want a better phone, so you might opt for the more expensive phone contract. And next thing you know, all of your money is going on paying these recurring debts. You're now living paycheck to paycheck. Finally, lifestyle inflation can also edge out your larger financial goals. So, say for example, you might be able to save less, so that means your emergency savings aren't as much. You won't be able to contribute as much to your retirement, and maybe that down payment on that house is taking a little bit longer. So it can definitely push those goals a little bit further than you want. A good first step in fighting against lifestyle inflation is understanding what's causing us to spend more. So here are a few reasons. Number one, instant gratification. We all go through that struggle between choosing what we desire in the heat of that moment or what would be best for us in the long term. This is known as the want-should conflict. Our wants in the moment fighting against what we should be doing to align with our longer term goals. Studies have shown that it is far more common for us to make the mistake of overindulging in wants at the expense of shoulds. You know, when you're walking through a shop or you're scrolling through an online marketplace and you see something and you think, I really want this. You know, you might not use it as much. It might come not as useful as you think, but you really want it. This is the want-should conflict. Do I give in to my wants and buy that item? Or do I know it probably won't help me as much and I should probably leave it? Number two, and this is something that happens to me a lot, special occasions. We don't realize just how often special occasions actually come up. Think about the next month. How many times do you think a special occasion will come around? You know those times where you're meeting an old friend or maybe an event's coming up that you really want to go to that only comes around once a year? How many of those events do you think will come up? Maybe two, three at most? Now look back at the last couple of months. How many times did those things actually come up? Times where you're like, hey, this is rare enough that I don't mind spending a little bit more. Maybe more times than you imagine, right? Studies have shown that people underestimate how much they spend on exceptional circumstances. We expect them to come up a lot less, but they often come up a lot more than we think. Studies also show participants expressing greater willingness to pay for exceptional items when the products were presented one at a time. We underestimate how many times special occasions come around, and we also have a greater willingness to pay for more during those special occasions. Thirdly and finally on my list of things causing us to spend more, a better standard of living. As mentioned before, you see every raise as a chance to increase your standard of living, and therefore you end up consuming more. Now let's talk about how we can hedge against lifestyle inflation to make sure that you don't fall into this trap every time you get a pay rise. First, understanding and evaluating what you're spending on. So a study on lifestyle inflation and addictive consumption found that there are 5 main industries which are the biggest contributors to this. Let's go through that. Industry number 1, food delivery. You know those apps where you don't feel like cooking, you just want something fresh, hot and quick, and 20 minutes later, you've got someone knocking on your door with a parcel full of food. Yeah, that's a big contributor. Industry number 2, online marketplaces. You know those apps where they stock everything from furniture to household appliances to technology, the whole book, they've got it. And all you got to do is click a button and it's there at your door next day. Yeah, they're another big contributor. Industry number 3, taxi services. You know those apps where you can just click a button and get a cab to your door. You don't have to rely on the bus timetables or the tube timetables. You don't have to walk out in the cold or go for a long walk in order to get to the supermarket. Yeah, they're another big contributor. Number 4, grocery delivery services. So that might be your big shops or your small shops as well. And you don't have to carry the items, you can order as much as you want and it doesn't really matter, and you might end up spending a little bit more on items you wouldn't otherwise take. And the final industry where a lot is spent on is regular services. So this is a little bit more general. It could be something like a gym membership, a subscription service, a personal trainer, a gardener, things that you spend on a regular basis. A good idea would be to make a list of these categories and see how much of money is going to each of these. Understand where you're spending on. Now, I'm not saying don't spend at all. I'm saying if you've got 4 bottles of perfume in your home, in your cupboard, do you really need that 5th one? Do you really need to buy that right now? Should you wait maybe till the other 4 finish and then you can buy the 5th one? Spend a bit more wiser. Technique number 2. Think and plan for your future. A study on self-regulation and longer-term financial decisions found that high CFC individuals are more likely to consider the future consequences of their behaviors and make decisions that are consistent with long-term goals and aspirations. Let's break that down. CFC stands for consideration of future consequences, i.e., those people who are high CFC means they take a larger consideration of the future consequences of the actions they make now. So people who had a plan for the future and knew what they wanted to achieve, they had some aspirations, maybe a deposit down for a house, maybe they wanted to save something else, they were more likely to make decisions that aligned with those long-term financial goals. They considered the consequences of these short impulse purchases and decided against them. Thirdly and finally, exert self-control. Now, this is the most difficult one of them all. A study on self-control and its impact on impulse buying found that there are 3 main ingredients that go into self-control. The 3 ingredients are goals conflict, ego depletion, and self-monitoring. Let's go through them now. So we've touched upon goals conflict a little bit here and there. Goals conflict is making sure that you have goals that align with that future financial person you want to be. Make sure your goals don't conflict each other and that you have clear, set goals for achieving those financial plans. Number 2, ego depletion. And I feel like a lot of people relate to this. It's defined as the state of insufficient strength to combat impulses. Let's play a scenario in your head. You've come home from a really long day at work. You're really tired and all you want to do is just sit on the sofa and watch some Netflix. You're kind of hungry, but you really cannot be bothered to cook. So even though you told yourself you won't order takeaways at all this month and it's kind of hitting the wallet, you'll let it slip just this once and you'll order. But this maybe happens 2 or 3 times a week. And next thing you know, you're spending £200-300 on takeaways a month. So to combat this, understand what gets you to a state of ego depletion and when you're in a state of ego depletion. That point where you're just really tired and you just don't mind spending. You'll spend without thinking about it. Try and prepare against those scenarios. So say for example, meal prep on the weekends so that when you are really tired from a long day at work, which is fine, we all get tired from a long day at work, but at least you're prepared so you don't have to order a takeaway and spend more money. Number 3, avoid self-monitoring for the public. That is, don't change the way you spend for the sake of public appearances. Maybe when you're out with your friends or out with some colleagues and you end up just spending more. The study found that monitoring one's self-presentation or behavior for the sake of desired public appearances increases in the likelihood of lapses in self-control. Maybe all your friends are going out, and even though you're a little bit tired, you don't want to be left out. You're getting FOMO already, thinking about them having fun, and so you force yourself to go out. Well, try not to force yourself to make those public appearances if they don't align with your long-term goals. So maybe if you are getting FOMO, go out once every other event or once every other motive. And so we've come to the end of the video. If you have any of your own personal techniques that work really well for you, please drop them in the comments. If not, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for watching.